Okay.
Good morning. Welcome to another Super Galactic Saturday. This is Jerry Sr., and I'm with Jerry Jr.
Good morning.
And it's another beautiful Saturday. The weather's nice. It's pretty cold here in California. We can't take the cold, so any little bit of cold is cold to us. But it's a beautiful day. The sun's out. We're supposed to get some rain, but we'll see about that, right? It never rains in
Well,
Southern California, so
supposedly.
supposedly, yeah. But thanks for joining us. Thanks for checking us out. Thanks for tuning in. We appreciate your time. We appreciate your attention. And we're coming at you today with a few things we're going to talk about and hopefully have some fun with. And feel free to engage and comment yourself. And we thank you. But you want to start with well, let's start with the trailer, right? Um, Daredevil, Born
Yeah,
Again.
I'll be honest. Not the biggest Daredevil fan. One of my best friends, his favorite superhero is Daredevil.
Yeah.
I heard good things about the first TV show. I heard they kind of messed him up in what's it called, She Hulk.
No,
Really
yeah,
stupid
She
thing.
Hulk and then Echo. He was
I don't even know what that is.
Echo is another is a similar, I guess, vigilante type hero who
Okay.
was deaf. Right?
Oh, is it that Native American deaf chick?
Yeah. They really de-eyed it up, if that's a term. I don't believe
Well,
that's
didn't
the real
he
character.
kick her butt
Uh,
because he's the Daredevil?
well, yeah, but but yeah, he had like a cameo in that series. I didn't watch that series.
I don't
I've
think
pretty much
anybody
given up
watched that
on
series.
Disney anything, especially Disney Marvel, Disney Star Wars. But I have to acknowledge that this is really awesome. The trailer looks, it does, and someone commented like this is basically just from what I'm looking at here
Hmm.
is like a season 4 or season 3 or 4 from the Daredevil on Netflix. It's the
So
same cast.
did you watch the Netflix one?
Yes, I did, and it
Okay.
is epic. It is some of the best streaming TV ever. Like seriously,
Okay.
if you haven't watched the the Daredevil series on Netflix, you are missing out. It's a great series. The action is great. The drama is great. Casting was awesome, but especially the fight scenes. Like I think it was season 2. There's like this fight scene where he's like descending this building down the stairs, and every level there's like 2 or 3 guys. Then he ends up in like a hallway, and it's like a continuous shot of him,
Yeah, I saw that. Yeah, I like when they do that
of
stuff.
Matt Murdock just kicking butt and taking names. Like, and it's the most incredible fight scenes. Um, so the choreography is amazing, and from the trailer, it looks like it still is. They brought back Vincent D'Onofrio, which he's an awesome kingpin. So yeah, I'm excited. I don't know if I'm gonna watch it on Disney Plus or if I'll wait and see if it, you know, find other means. Not, I got rid of Disney Plus. I don't like Disney Plus um,
Well, I
anymore.
mean, we don't like
So
Disney, so
yeah, so it's a mixed bag. I mean, maybe this is a good sign that they've learned their lessons, so to speak. Maybe they're you know like, hey, let's actually make something good, right? Let's make something that doesn't have blatant messaging in it. It's just an actual good story with you know uh, great characters, right? So we'll see. I'm sure we'll hear good things about it, but the excitement's there. A lot of people are like, yeah, finally, like they've been waiting for this, and I admit it's tempting. Once it drops, I don't know. I might go ahead and subscribe just to watch the show. You know, and cancel when I'm done with it.
oh my goodness.
I don't know, but seriously, yeah,
Well, here's the thing: if the show does well, then it'll be proof that I mean we've had enough proof, but it'll be more proof that superhero fatigue doesn't exist.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, it's that's such a stupid term. I hate when people use it.
Well,
Um,
it's a not a red herring. I guess yeah, it's
any
a red herring.
serious, yeah, any serious manner. I hate when people use that term. It's because it's not a true term. It's never existed. Um, and yeah, and speaking of which, that kind of segues into our other uh, conversation.
Oh yeah. So I recently, and because if you go on YouTube, there's a lot of people. Everybody has like a reaction channel nowadays, right? They're
Yeah,
reacting to TV shows, they're reacting to movies,
yeah,
trailers, stuff like that. That's
for
kind of the new meta nowadays. But a lot of people I've noticed have been reacting to old movies, and I think it's cool because it's
sure.
funny watching people either my age and even uh, uh, younger and sometimes older. It really depends.
Yeah,
But just watching movies that I grew up watching and like for the first time, and playing games that I played for the first time. It's an interesting feeling. But one of the things that I one of the more recent ones that I watched was somebody was reacting people's reaction to like RoboCop, the original one,
yeah, right.
and yeah, they were like people were having a blast because RoboCop's cool. It was so
Yeah,
cool.
RoboCop is awesome.
It was the coolest. It was such a great rated R movie that they make toys out of it.
Yeah,
that speaks
this is true.
volumes.
Yeah, the 80s went hard,
Yeah,
man.
they didn't care,
You don't care
but
about censorship and
yeah, oh, the kids will love it. It's RoboCop.
kids love it. That's all that matters. So,
I'll
and
buy that for $1.
I
No,
love
but
RoboCop was dope. So
yeah, it was. I love RoboCop.
yeah, it's an awesome movie. The first one, the last two, you know, they're okay.
I
They're
never
not as,
saw anything
they're not as
outside of the
good
first
as
one.
yeah, they're not as good as the first one. They're in the same vein for the most part, but
Hmm.
they don't hit the same as the first one. First one was like, yo, this is like this is it. Like,
Okay,
this is amazing. The other two, they're a bit derivative in that it's like you're just kind of rehashing the same tropes.
gotcha.
Um, they I don't know. It's policemen go on strike. All this like it's kind of like it's just the same thing being rehashed over again.
Isn't there one where they made RoboCop like nice and like he was like chastising the children and they like bullied him?
Yeah, that's probably either two or
Oh, okay,
yeah. They kind of reprogrammed them or something. Yeah,
yeah. But what's it called? But yeah, one of the my favorite scenes to watch people react to is the ending where he kills the CEO guy because he gets fired because he's not allowed to kill anybody in the
yeah, that's
company.
right. So
The dude's like, "You're fired," and he's like, "Thank you, sir," and he just shoots him out the window.
and that's
That
the
was
end.
awesome. Yeah.
That's
Well,
it.
well,
He goes,
well.
"Have a
The
nice-"
end is where he asks him, "What's your name?"
Yeah, we seen it.
He
Yeah,
says
right.
his yeah, and he says his real name, so it shows that he's
It's,
still human. And
yeah, he
it's
just
the
walks
movie
away
ends.
and it goes dun 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 dun. I never.
Yeah, and it's so
It's the
simple,
best
right?
ending ever.
Like a lot of movies
Like,
nowadays.
there's no like pretense here. It's just
Yeah,
that's it, guys.
but
RoboCop wins. He gets his guy. Go home.
but I think it's beautiful because we still get to see, hey, he's still human underneath all the robot.
Yeah, and that's kind of what's fun about that is it didn't require this
It didn't
whole
require a lot of pomp and
whole
circumstance.
moment of emotional. It was they really built it up throughout the movie where he went back to his old place. He remembered his wife, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah,
So that last line where he says Murphy, you're like,
yeah,
and even before that when he and his partner they took out the gang, right? And he actually calls out her name, it's great, so you realize, yeah, he is still Murphy. He's still human, right? He's not just a robot anymore. So
yeah. And it's cool seeing people react positively to that.
yeah,
But
yeah,
one of my favorite things is to watch people react to Superman, the
yeah.
original Superman movie. And I think people are
Well,
reacting to it
well,
because
let
of
me
the
correct
recent one.
you. It's not the original Superman movie. It's the 1978 with Christopher Reeve. directed, I think written, directed, produced, etc. by Richard Donner.
But
There
that
were Superman movie.
I know, but if when I say original Superman movie, no
I
regular
understand that.
person
I understand. No one
is
thinks about
thinking
1950s. I understand. I'm just saying
nobody.
it's not the first one though.
I know it's not, but
It's
people know which one I'm
one
talking
from
about.
basically from
It's
my
that
generation.
iconic.
Yeah.
Like no offense, but it's like those.
I'm not offended. I just want to put it out there because I want to make sure we're just being accurate, right?
No,
But,
you're right. You're right.
but
You're right.
yeah,
You're right.
that is the quintessential. Not
It's
just
the
Superman
Superman
movie.
movie. It
It's
is
the
the Superman
quintessential
movie.
superhero movie. Um, it's what you kind of. It's the litmus for superhero movies. Period.
Yeah.
Right? Like if you want a successful superhero movie, you're gonna look at the first Superman with
Yeah.
by Richard Donner and starring Christopher Reeve.
Mhm.
You're gonna look at that movie,
Yeah.
and even Superman 2, right, for sure. So
Well,
yeah,
more
and
so Superman
it
one, but
is
yeah.
nice to see. I've seen a few channels do it where they'll do a watch with me, right, and
Yeah.
they're watching either the first Superman or Superman 2 or both, and it's nice. It's like seeing for me, I'm 51, but to see
Oh yeah,
younger
that's right.
people in their 20s, and in their early 30s watching something that came out before they were born
Yeah.
and going, that's awesome, right? And feeling the same excitement that
Oh
I
yeah.
felt when I was a kid and I first watched it. And that's the thing. I didn't go to the movies to watch Superman, the first Superman, right? I watched it on cable. It came out on at that time it was called On TV, right? And
Yeah.
I watched
I
it on
forgot.
cable,
Yeah.
and I thought, "Hey, that's the guy from the Super Friends show."
That's the guy
That
for
was,
the Superman.
that was my reaction. Like, that's Superman from the Super Friends because I was a big
Yeah.
Super Friend. I
That's
loved
the
that
guy from the peanut butter
cartoon. You
commercials.
know, and yeah. So, but I did watch Superman 2 in theaters, and it was a drive-in theater too, so it was actually really cool. Um, but yeah, it's nice, and I think a big reason why we're seeing this, not just Superman, but other movies, obviously, but and TV shows, is the fact that one, there's just a natural curiosity, right? Because these things, especially something like a Superman movie, it's iconic, just like the original Star Wars, right? They they are driving a lot of what we're seeing today, so far as inspiration and derivatives, etc., or rehash or reboots and remakes, right?
Hmm.
Those IPs are driving that. And two, um, there, despite that, unfortunately, there's not a lot of great, inspiring content out there. You know, um, that's newer, right? There's some. I mean, I'm not saying there's nothing, but it is kind of bare sometimes. And I think what that does is it causes you to go back to find the good stuff, right?
Yeah, I mean the same thing's happening with video games. I've been
Yeah, that's
watching a
right.
lot of people watch old or play old games from like the '90s and '80s and stuff like that, just for fun. And like more people are buying retro games and stuff like that
Yeah,
than ever
yeah,
before.
yeah. And
But
that's
with the
kind of
super,
always been a thing, but I think it's grown quite a bit
oh
over.
yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
but the one I think the one of my favorite reactions is and I'll find the channel, but it was two girls watching it, and they were watching the Superman movie, and I bring this up because it's like people like to like pretend like like having people like to pretend like having attractive superheroes doesn't matter, but it's like people.
Oh,
Listen,
oh, I know the one you're talking about. I
let me
watched
tell you something.
that.
Let me
Yeah,
tell you
they
something.
were commenting about Christopher Reeve.
Everybody, yeah,
Huh, yeah.
they
I thought that
they
was so cute. It was funny because it's like,
they needed some
yeah,
water. That's all I'm
yeah,
gonna say.
especially in light of recent controversies with video games where they're talking about, either extreme, uh, you know, uh, particularly female characters, extreme exposure and inappropriateness versus just, hey, let's just have pretty or attractive
Yeah.
characters.
Shout out to Cinepals, by the way. That's the reaction channel. But they were
What
they were
else? Yeah,
reacting to
That's
the
it. Yeah, that's
Superman
right.
movie.
Yeah,
And and they thought he was cute. B, like they thought he was wholesome, which he is. He's
that's right.
Clark Kent.
That's right.
But at C, they thought he was handsome. Like they were looking at him, especially with the scene where Clark Kent um uh what's his name? Uh when he did the thing where he like straightens his back out and he's like a whole 2 inches taller.
Oh
Yeah,
yeah,
that
when he's
got
going
to
on the
him.
date with Lois Lane. Yeah, yeah, that was a great scene, right? But
Yeah.
it just shows how Christopher Reeve, being this accomplished actor, he was a great actor even before Superman,
Oh yeah.
and to take on this role, and he took it seriously,
Oh yeah.
and
That's
he
yeah.
he really tried to convey at that time, what they wanted to convey with Clark Kent and Superman, right? That they were basically these sort of opposite characters, right? Because it's like you got to pull it off. You have to say, okay, will people really believe I'm not Superman just because I have glasses on?
Yeah.
Well, yeah, it's possible if your demeanor, your behavior, your voice, right, your posture, all those things are so diametrically different, right, compared to Superman,
Hmm.
right? And that was the whole point. That's what they went with, and that's what they pushed, and he pulled it off brilliantly, right? Now, I'll be honest, I've never cared for that portrayal, of Clark Kent, right? I've always enjoyed, especially once Superman animated series came out, years later, of course. But even before that, with Lois and Clark, Dean Cain,
Uh-huh.
I think he did a great job as Clark because it's the same thing. Like he was a small town guy or whatever, in a big city, but he never came off as inept, or nerdy per se, right? He just came off as just a normal person. You could say lame, but it was always lame from the perspective of a woman. Like, so it's specifically Lois,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, yeah.
But to everyone else, it's like, well, it's just an average guy, right? And that was kind of the point. That's how he blended in. So I liked his portrayal of Clark a lot. And then, of course, with the animated series, I think that Clark Kent was actually quite great. Um, for the same reason, it was very similar, more similar to Dean Cain's portrayal, right?
Yeah.
And in cartoons, we saw some of it, right, but not a lot.
What
There
is the
was just
saying?
this
It's like I
one
don't think there
series.
was anything wrong with what he did. I
No,
think
I'm not
the
saying it's
goal.
wrong. I'm just my preference. That's all.
No, I get it. I mean, I could go either way. I think as long as is like there's a visible and like difference between Clark Kent and Superman. Like,
Yeah,
because otherwise that kind of
yeah.
defeats the
And
purpose.
let me point this out to his credit. The fact that I don't like it, right? Like I don't care for it, is only speaks to that it was successful.
It worked.
Right, it worked. Why? Because you're not really supposed to like Clark.
Like Clark Kent, you're supposed to like
You're supposed
Superman.
to love Superman, but you're not supposed to really like Clark because Clark is the opposite of Superman. Right? So you'll never believe that he's Superman.
Yeah,
Even if he
that was
said,
the whole
"Hey
point.
guys, I'm Superman," you'll go, "That's ridiculous," and that's the whole point, right? Like if you watch the series with George Reeves, no relation to Christopher Reeve. I used to watch it as a kid. It was from
Is
the
that the
90s.
black and white one?
Yeah, it was black and white, although they
Yeah.
did colorize it eventually. But his portrayal of Clark was interesting too because it wasn't Christopher Reeve's portrayal, right? But he was sort of just an everyman, right? And a straight arrow, so to speak, right?
Yeah.
They even in certain episodes would call him a coward because they're like, "Hey, you just disappeared. Would you run away or whatever?" Right? But he
Yeah.
never acted like a coward. You understand? He
Yeah.
just allowed others to assume things because of his disappearing when trouble arises. Of course, it's because
Right.
he turns into Superman.
Right.
So
Right. Right.
this portrayal was actually quite good too, and that's what I grew up watching as a kid up until the Christopher Reeve movies, right? And so that's kind of what I was looking at in my head, like, well, I like that Clark Kent in the black and white show, right? Um, and honestly, that's more closer to the Bruce Timm iteration, right? With the Superman animated series, and of course Justice League Unlimited and all that.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's you could go back to George Reeves and his portrayal, So Christopher Reeve's portrayal was very unique, and that's at that time, of Clark Kent. I think outside of being in the comics, and then you look at All Star Superman, right, and that's closer to what Christopher Reeve gave us, right? The Clark Kent and
Yeah,
All Star Superman, right? So, which in a way, maybe that was sort of an homage to Christopher Reeve, right? So,
yeah,
but yeah, it's nice to see an appreciation for these movies and to see people respond to them very similar to what I remember growing up watching it myself and with friends and family. Responding the same way. Even commenting about how handsome Christopher Reeve was. I was like,
yeah.
yeah, I remember that too. That was my older sisters and my aunts and all that stuff, right?
Oh yeah, of course.
So it's kind of funny, like, okay, yeah. So that's awesome to see, and that's what helps make it sort of timeless, right? Like, it still holds up. I mean, watching especially this opening scene with Jor-El and everything, and
Oh yeah,
it's like it still holds up, man. This looks really awesome, right? It's a beautiful imagining of Krypton and everything, and stark contrast to fast forward to Man of Steel, right? Um, I never liked that intro of Man of Steel, that opening sequence, because
yeah.
like I don't that
Krypton
doesn't
wasn't
feel
very
like
memorable.
yeah, not just not memorable, but it was just ugly.
I
Everything
know,
was
but that's what
ugly.
made it not
And it's like,
memorable.
why
Like
are
I
you
don't
making
remember
Krypton ugly?
when people think Krypton, they think of this
Yeah, exactly. Right. And even
because
Smallville,
it
the
strikes to you.
series,
Yeah.
paid homage in that way. Hey, they actually had Chris Reeve on there as a guest star, but they
Oh,
also
nice.
referenced the Richard Donner version of Superman and the Fortunes of Solitude and the crystals and all that. And I thought, yes, I love that. I love that they did that, because to me that's probably the best representation of that dynamic in the Superman mythos of Krypton. Right, it is what we see in the Richard Donner cuts. Right, so I've always appreciated that. I've never liked Man of Steel and that opening. I like Russell Crowe being Jor-El. I think that was a good choice. Russell Crowe is a great actor.
Yeah.
So that's not the issue. The issue really is never the casting; it's the production and the
Yeah,
story
that's
itself.
true.
The casting was actually great. Kevin Costner as his Earth dad, right? Paul Kent.
Hmm.
It's
Yeah.
brilliant, man. Kevin Costner is awesome. He's,
Yeah, it was just it was everything around it, like the
well,
writing
I didn't
and
like the way he died, right?
well, that's what I'm saying. It was like the writing and the production.
Yeah, that was awful. And that's the thing. A movie like that, it's not going to hold up very well. It's just not. It's eventually, sure, it's going to have its fans, and I know there's a lot of Zack Snyder fans and all that. That love everything he did. Um, I'm not one of them. You know.
Well, I'll admit I liked Man of Steel when it came out when I was a kid, but I don't really have a desire to watch it again. I did not like Man of Steel, or no, Batman versus Superman.
Yeah,
Excuse me.
Batman vs Superman. Right. I didn't either.
That one I just didn't like.
Man of Steel, I was willing to give it a chance, but it's like the more I watched it, the less I liked it. And yeah, it's just it doesn't hold up well. And Batman vs Superman, I didn't like that out the gate. I just did. Because at the time I felt like it was rushed. It's like
I just
Batman
didn't like the story.
should have been introduced separately in his own movie. That's
Yeah.
one. Two, Batman shouldn't have been going after Superman hard like they had. Like it didn't make sense.
No.
Batman is smarter than that. You know. Um, so yeah, it's kind of weird. But yeah, it just doesn't hold up in my opinion. So, but this Richard Donner, and look, say what you will about the rest of them, you know, 3 and 4 and 5.
You don't like Richard Pryor?
I love Richard Pryor. But Richard Pryor plus Superman, it's like oil and water, man. That just should have never been a thing.
Oh, man.
I mean, it just, I don't know.
Yeah, it was kind of dumb.
I mean, I think it was just a ploy because Richard Pryor was pretty big. He was a funny guy. He was a very successful comedian. So having him in there was definitely a draw. It's like, oh, Richard Pryor, like, what is it gonna look like? What is he gonna do? Is he gonna be a bad guy? Like, and and that's the thing. I think they missed the mark with him. I think they should have made him an actual villain because he wasn't really a villain. He was kind
He
of
was
just,
just a lackey.
yeah, he was a pawn, right? He was a brilliant pawn, right? They used his brilliance to kill Superman, and and he kind of did the right thing later, but I wish they would have just made him a villain. I think that would have been more compelling, because he would have been hilarious, right? But I'm not sure what villain he could have been. Maybe they could have just made up a brand, just a brand new villain for him. But I think that probably would have worked out better than the way what they did.
Yeah.
The best part of that movie um, was when he fought himself, like hands down. That was an awesome scene. So when Clark Kent fought Superman, right? I guess evil Superman. Yeah, that's to me that's the best scene in that movie. Like that, if you're gonna watch that movie, that scene is worth watching. Like so because it was really cool. But beyond that, yeah, it's not my favorite. I mean, but what's funny though is they're not great compared to the first one, but they're still watchable.
Yeah, that's
Like
true.
they're still watchable and rewatchable. Like I've never seen. I've never had the attitude, I guess, of when I see like Superman 3, on like local access or cable, and go, oh, I'm not watching it. No, I'm gonna like, yeah, I'll watch it. You know what I mean? Like I'm gonna watch it. Like even though I
Yeah.
know it's not a great movie, right? Compared to the first two movies, but it's still watchable. It's still even enjoyable, to be honest. You just understand that objectively they're not as good as the first two movies, right? Um, but and there's just diminishing returns, obviously, once you get to five, right?
Yeah.
But still, I would watch five.
Five.
I
That's
would watch it
Superman
again.
Returns, right?
No,
Yeah,
five.
that's
No, there's Superman 2, and that's with the three, Zod
that's
and
what's not. And then
Superman
Superman 3 is
3.
with Richard Pryor, and then Superman 4 is with the Nuclear Man,
Yeah,
and then
Nuclear
Superman
Man.
Returns is Superman 5.
Superman. Oh, you're right. Superman Return, Superman 5, right?
Yeah,
So, but yeah, I mean, I will watch them all. So
yeah, I remember like that movie.
yeah, so they're all still watchable. So even though they're not great, like I said, but yeah, it's nice seeing people appreciate it. Hopefully, we'll see more and more of that with other movies like Indiana Jones.
Oh yeah,
The Temple of Doom, which is my favorite. I mean, not Temple of Doom. Raiders of the Lost Ark. And Temple of Doom is okay though. I do like it. Um, and it's
that's
actually
the third one,
I
right?
think it's supposed to be no, it's the second one. It's supposed to be like a prequel to Raiders of the Lost Ark, which is interesting.
I never heard about that.
And then there's three, and that's the one with Sean Connery, who plays his dad. That's actually really good. They find the Holy Grail and all that good stuff. It's actually a really good movie. Um, then beyond that, I think they did the one with Shia LaBeouf, and
Oh yeah,
that was years later. But I didn't care for that one, to be honest. So
the Crystal Skull. Yeah,
yeah,
I don't
Crystal
think
Skull.
anybody liked that one.
Yeah, and nothing against Shia LaBeouf. I mean, he's okay. He's
Well,
cool.
Shia LaBeouf wasn't really the problem. It was just,
No, it's just the story just wasn't. You know,
uh,
and the whole idea of like introducing aliens, it's kind of like
I guess. I mean,
I
if
don't know.
they
I
introduced
love the idea.
God in the first
I know,
movie,
but
so
that's kind of my point, though. It's like you went from God to aliens. It's
that's
just kind of
true. Yeah,
silly, I think. Versus
that's true. Yeah,
even with the Lost Ark, it didn't really get mystical until the end. It's almost like the what do you call it? Ex Machina, right? Like they were tied up, they lost,
yeah,
and the enemy, because of their own hubris, opens the ark
yeah.
because they want power, they want to see it, right? And it it does them in, right? The arc,
Yeah.
because it's like they were trying to see God, and
Well, yeah, it was the Ark of the Covenant. Yeah.
and that's the whole point. And I thought, okay, wow, that's kind of brilliant. It's still an ex machina moment, but it's still, you know, it's
It
great.
fits.
It does. It fits, and it's the only supernatural moment I think in the entire movie, right? So it does kind of come out of nowhere. They don't really set it up where like it's a supernatural movie. You know what I mean?
Sure, but I mean, I
By
feel like if you're
the
looking for
arc
the Ark
itself,
of the Covenant, it's like,
right? But at the end of the day, it's just an artifact, right? There's
yeah,
there's never any, although they imply, right, because they're reading the ancient scripts and that whoever holds it and win every war and all that stuff. And but it's like, yeah, but they don't actually show any mystical things happening, right? Everything is very grounded. So
yeah.
it's almost like the end of Superman where he reverses time.
Oh,
They,
yeah,
they don't set it. And that's my only nitpick of that movie is they it just comes out of nowhere.
yeah. That's
It's
true.
like he can reverse time. And I'm thinking, bro, you should have been doing that the whole time, like. And listen, this is my thoughts, even as a kid, watching this. Okay, when
Yeah,
I
yeah, yeah.
thought he could just reverse time. Like, why didn't he do that with everything, right? So, like he could have reversed time all the way back to before Luthor put the kryptonite on him, right?
Right.
And know what's going to happen and avoid it. Right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So that's all. It's you know, it's kind of like the writers' room was, hey, how are we going to end this? I don't know. Let's just have a reverse time.
By flying,
Yeah, just have them do that. Okay. So
uh,
yeah, it's kind
still
of
look cool.
it was yeah, listen, it was cool. It's just came out of nowhere, but
No, it did. Yeah.
I still love it. It's a classic movie. And same thing with Raiders of the Lost Ark. It's like, yeah, God intervened. You can say at the end, and part of it does fit because you know, the character of Indiana Jones was someone who doesn't really believe in God. He doesn't believe in supernatural things.
Yeah.
He simply appreciates artifacts and appreciates, he's like, it belongs in a museum so the world can enjoy these things, right? And understand, right? It's in the vein of like the great explorers of old that
Yeah.
would, venture out and go to the Arctic and all these different, in search of this mystical creature or the lost city of this and that, right? It's like the world should know we should know our history. We should know, right? And that's kind of what I loved about it. So it makes sense for that to be sort of like, okay, you're not a religious person. You don't believe in these spiritual things, but here's the spiritual thing that happens and you can't explain.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
It's like, okay, yeah, it's kind of cool, right? It's a better ending in my opinion compared to Superman, the first Superman. So
No, I agree.
I
Yeah.
think that's better because it's just more fitting, right? But yeah, but it's kind of exciting because I would love to. Maybe we can do that sometime too. Is explore some older movies that we enjoyed growing up and rewatch them,
Yeah.
and appreciate them because I guarantee you um, you'll find something in those movies that you didn't notice before.
Yeah.
You know what we should do? Well, I don't know. We can do that because that's kind of racy. I was gonna say you should watch Car Wash. Remember?
I don't know about car
I have my
wash.
I have my kids watch Car Wash, and they enjoyed. You guys enjoyed it, right?
No, it was a cool movie.
Yeah,
Yeah, I
yeah,
liked it.
it's a great movie. But it's a bit racy, so
Yeah, I mean,
I could-
yeah, quite literally.
yeah, and not just like there's obviously sexual scenes or whatever or innuendo,
I mean, it's
but
L.A. It's a day in the
also
life of L.A. in the 19. It's literally it's that generation's Friday. So if you like
yeah,
Friday,
that's a good way to put it.
then you'll probably like
It's a generation's
Car Wash.
Friday
It is. That's
because
what it
it
is.
is
It's
it
a
is
day in the
based
life
on
of
things
L.A.
and
in the
it's
70s.
yeah, but it's I think in my opinion it will be more offensive to the sensibilities of today compared to Friday.
I
Friday is not as
guess.
offensive. Car Wash is because it's a little bit everybody in Car Wash.
That's true. Yeah.
You know what I mean? And there's terms that are used. You
I,
understand?
that's
Language.
funny. I don't really. I guess I just have to rewatch the movie.
Yeah, there's you'll see.
It
That's
is
what
the
I'm saying.
'70s in Los Angeles, so.
Yeah. Like another good example is Blackula, right?
Oh yeah.
That's
What?
listen,
Oh my
and
god.
it's funny because I went to a screening of it. Um, I think back in 2020. No, it's early 2024, and it was interesting watching it and seeing the young people in the audience, right, all in their 20s and early 30s,
Hmm.
and they were watching it. And they're like chuckling and giggling, because compared today, it's it's dated, and
Yeah.
but there's some scenes where certain terminology is used. And they're like, "What, yo, what?" Like the whole, like I can't believe he said that,
I gotta watch it.
and it
I
was
gotta watch that
really,
again.
really funny. It's because during that time, right, sensibilities were different,
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
and
yeah.
once again, that movie has a little bit of everybody. It's not just a black movie.
Yeah,
It has black leads. It has other black supporting, white supporting characters, Jewish, Puerto Rican, Mexican, and even homosexual characters. And
yeah,
so certain terminologies are used
yeah, yeah,
in
yeah,
reference
yeah.
to these different groups that, aren't considered PC today, right? So
Yeah.
it's actually a beautiful movie though. I actually liked it.
What, Blackula?
Yeah, it really is.
I
It's
gotta
a
watch it
beautiful.
again.
I know it seems like it's just like this kind of kitschy, sort of movie, but it's actually a beautiful story. If you take the time to watch it, it's about a man who becomes a vampire not by his own choice, who loses
Well,
his wife.
Blackula's whole thing wasn't he like an African warlord who
No,
was like,
no, he was a wealthy African American man who was taken out by a vampire, and him and his wife, and he lost his wife. Like she dies while he is in this sort of incubation as a vampire. And so when he wakes up finally, right, in the modern day, because this happens hundreds of years ago,
right?
he's he has to feed, right, and so now he's sort of cursed as a vampire to feed, and his whole thing is about like what am I going to do, like where do I fit in. But then he sees a woman who looks exactly like his wife, and he's still in love with his wife. And so he obviously goes to her, not as a vampire, of course. He's posing as sort of this wealthy businessman or something, right? And he, excuse me, and he seduces her and courts her, and and he's trying to get her to fall in love with him, and she does actually, you know.
Okay, I gotta watch it because I remember there was a black because there's more than one Blackula movie, and
I think so. I'm not sure, but this is the one that I remember.
because I
And
remember
like
there
I
was
said,
one where he was like an African warlord who was trying to get power to fight off like colonizers, and so he traveled to Transylvania to fight Dracula, but he ended up losing the fight, and Dracula turns him into a vampire.
well,
That's
that's similar, but he wasn't. I don't know. When you say African warlord, you make it sound like he was in like had a spear and you know piercings in his nose. It wasn't like
well,
that.
he was from a. Oh my! I remember being from a
No, yeah, they were. They were. That's what I'm saying. It's not just African. He was with his wife. They visited this man who happens to be a vampire, trying to get support and everything, and he gets tricked, and he gets attacked and turned into a vampire.
okay,
He gets betrayed, in other words, by the
gotcha.
vampire by Dracula.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's so you're right. That's the same movie, but it's not just this African warlord. It's like he wasn't an evil person.
Well, I'm not saying
He
he
was
was
betrayed.
evil, but like he was,
Yeah, he was betrayed by Dracula, right? And he wakes up, several hundred years later, and like I said, his wife is gone. She's dead because they were trapped in this tower in the castle, right? So she was
okay.
there, and I guess she just, probably just starved to death,
Yeah.
But because I don't believe he made her into a vampire. You see,
Gotcha. I see.
so but like I say, he sees this woman who looks just like his wife, and he courts and he wants to be with her, so he wants to turn her into a vampire, and I think he has to bite her like 3 times or something like that. I don't know.
Three times.
Yeah, he has to like because he like puts her in a trance, all this kind of stuff, and he has to like bite her again to turn her into a vampire like him, right?
Okay.
And of course, she doesn't necessarily want to, right? But she's also in love with him too, So the police are after him because he's obviously feasting on other people, and they turn into vampires as a consequence, right?
Yeah.
So they're trying to find him because it looks like a serial killer, but then they start seeing the bodies actually come back to life because they're vampires now, and
Right.
they end up, so they're trying to go after him, and eventually they corner him, and they chase him out, and I think what happens is he has the woman who's he's preparing to basically make her like him, right? And then the police bust in and kind of disrupt it, and she ends up accidentally being killed
Mm.
trying to protect him. And so as a consequence, he's distraught, and I think he just kind of wanders out into the sunlight and just lets himself die, right? So that's what I'm saying. Like it's actually kind of a beautiful story.
Okay.
It's like he just wanted the love of his life back, right? That he lost before through this tragic event, right? Through this betrayal. So um, yeah, it's kind of a beautiful story. I mean, yeah, it's 1970s perspective. So it definitely has its subtleties and innuendo, but if you actually pay attention to the story, you realize, oh, it's kind of beautiful, right? It was kind of a love story. Even though it's like the whole idea of the sympathetic villain, right?
Yeah.
He's a bit sympathetic, right? So yeah, it's kind of interesting, especially rewatching it as an older person and be like, oh, okay, yeah, like you
Yeah.
catch
Yeah.
on to
Yeah.
certain subtleties. And you're like, oh, that's what that meant. Oh, that's what that was about, right? So it's pretty cool. I encourage anyone to check it out. But yeah, but we can't do a watch either because it's racy too. So have to like heavily censor.
Yeah.
So this is the
I
'70s,
mean,
and
you could say that about most
yeah, censorship
exploitation
is very
movies in the
okay.
70s.
Yeah, honestly, and it's funny. We think censorship is this kind of, and when I say censorship, I mean the lack of censorship. We think that's a new thing, but it's really not. Censorship is actually a new thing, but the lack of it isn't in Hollywood. Like you go back to like the early mid 1900s, there were a lot of movies that were made that were completely uncensored.
Well, what was it? The pre-code, whatever.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Before the whole family code or whatever it was, the what was it, Baptist committee? I forgot what it's called, but yeah, before the censorship boards were made, yeah, they were like going to town, like like
Yeah.
there was no.
Yeah. The
And
motion
I
picture
don't mean
production
as
code. Yeah.
nudity or so. I mean like even with gore and different things, like
Yeah.
violence, portraying that stuff wasn't, there was no real restrictions. So then you get the censorship, right, and then you see a reversal, right. But then even like I said, you get to the '70s. It's while it's there, but a lot of these movies, certain things weren't censored still, so you still got away with a lot of stuff, right?
Hmm.
So it's kind of fascinating.
Yeah. Well,
But
let
yeah,
us know what old movies you guys like. What do you guys? What? Who are your favorite reactors? What's your favorite movie to watch that you like to watch people react to? Let us know in the comments below.
yeah, please do. And speaking of old movies, right? We were talking about Disney. One thing I appreciate is I follow a guy named Ed McRae
Ed
on
McRae.
X. Yeah,
Okay.
and he's a Christian conservative cartoonist, um, and I'm not sure if he actually worked at Disney or worked for Disney. I would imagine he probably did at some point, but he does a lot of Disney related historical archiving.
Oh, really?
and he releases a lot of stuff, Disney related, specifically Walt Disney himself, in regards to what he actually believed, comments he made, speeches he gave,
Oh boy.
writing. And you start to realize that a lot of what um, has been said about him and put out there in recent years is not true. You know,
Oh, really?
that Walt Disney was someone who was a very conservative man, and he believed in the ideals of, um, the Constitution and liberty and freedom, free enterprise, and he was a very patriotic.
I feel like that's common knowledge though.
No, it's well, I would say in recent decades it hasn't been. That's what I'm saying. He's been painted more as someone who is, you know, probably a communist and all this kind of stuff. And especially when you look at current Disney with their positions on DEI and, you know, the trans agenda, things like that. It's like very counter intuitive to what Walt Disney himself represented.
Well, I agree with that. I'm just saying, like, I mean, I feel like most people. I don't want to say most people, but like, I know my understanding that Disney has always been. He was always a very conservative person, like to a fault. Like he was very much anti-communist.
Yeah,
Uh, he was. There's a lot of things said about Disney. He definitely was a bit of a control freak, which is a kind of an understatement. But that has just more to do with his personal life than anything. Like if you know how his upbringing and stuff, he became kind of a control freak. Like he tried to sort of be everybody's dad is what I've heard people say.
yeah,
Like
I've heard that.
the whole Epcot project was literally him trying to make a city in Disney World,
Yeah,
right? It
right.
wasn't just like, oh, future technology. It was like, no, he wanted people to live there. But then
Yeah,
like it would be
yeah.
like
Because
a
Walt Disney was incredibly ambitious. Like we think Elon Musk is ambitious, wanting to go to Mars,
yeah,
and it
no.
is. I'm not saying it isn't, but Walt Disney, no doubt he's probably inspired by Walt Disney because Walt Disney was in the same vein, right? He wanted to, Howard Hughes, those guys, they wanted to explore space and get,
Oh yeah.
they wanted the future to come because they believed it would be better, right?
I
Uh,
mean, the guy made a whole animatronic version of Abraham Lincoln.
that's right.
I mean, I mean,
Excuse me.
what else can you say to that except
Yeah, I agree.
ambition?
So yeah. So I appreciate. I encourage you to follow his account. It's Ed McCrae or at real Ed McCrae on X because he always posts a lot of goodies. Like one recent one he posted was about sort of this extra final verse to the song "It's a Small World."
Oh really?
Yeah, it's actually quite beautiful, and I believe it was written by the Sherman Brothers. They were the ones who composed it and wrote it, and the,
Yes, I think that's right. Yeah.
and the son of one of the brothers, I believe, is the one who he has a clip of him singing it, and sort of paying tribute to the Sherman Brothers. So
Oh nice.
I encourage you to check it out. It's really, really cool. And I appreciate him sharing this and taking the time to do it um, because, we need this. We need people that will, you know, teach us the real history of things and, what it's all about and, hold on to those memories because if you were to judge Disney by today, right, you would honestly they're like two different companies. Like looking back, looking at the early movies and TV shows that they did, the music, and then you look at the last 10 years, maybe 20 years. To be honest,
Yeah.
they're not the same company. They don't have the same values, and it's unfortunate. So,
Yeah.
so yeah,
It's hard to. I mean, I don't say it's hard to say. Like on one hand, I agree. I definitely think old Disney had a better sense, had a better what's the term? They had a better heartbeat on the culture, however you say it.
yeah,
They were able to connect to people a lot better. than newer Disney. At the same time, there's a lot of, and this isn't unique to Disney, the Walt Disney Company. You know, they still had there was a lot more issues with how they treated their actors and their animators, but especially their actors. Like if anybody knows the story of the the boy who was the rotoscope actor for Peter Pan, you know, his story is really sad.
Oh,
You know,
really? Yeah, I think I
uh,
heard something about that.
well, because and let me pull up his name. But yeah, the boy who Peter Pan's based off of in the movie,
Yeah.
like his design and everything. Um, Robbie K.
Hmm.
No, not Robbie K. That's the newer movie. Why did I say? But Bobby Driscoll. There we go.
Bobby
Bobby
Driscoll.
Driscoll.
Okay.
He was a child actor. He was very popular. Um, he was in other Disney movies as well. He was the boy in Song of the South. Um, he was in So Dear to My Heart, a few other movies. But obviously his most known thing was he was the he was the rotoscope actor for Peter Pan. Like if you look at Peter Pan, if you look at Bobby Driscoll, it's
Yeah,
the
that makes sense. Yeah.
yeah.
I mean, a lot of their characters were based off of real models. Real.
Oh yeah, yeah. Same thing with what's her name, Alice from Alice in Wonderland,
Hmm.
and a bunch of others. But the thing is that he
And I mean, human characters.
no, yeah, obviously, yeah, yeah. Yeah, look at that. That's Peter Pan. Like
Yeah. Okay.
that's even him dressed up as Peter Pan. Like that, he's just Peter Pan.
Yeah, I get it.
But what ended up happening was after he got too old, they kind of like dumped him, and allegedly there's allegations of
Well, when
that
you,
he was.
when you say dump, like, what does that mean? Was he fired?
Well, yeah, they stopped. Well, yeah, they stopped hiring him for projects, and they
Okay.
didn't pay him for, huh?
Because he got too old.
Yeah,
Okay, got it.
and uh, they didn't really pay him for his stuff that he did for Peter Pan, and he ended up
Oh, they
dying
didn't pay him
homeless.
for modeling and stuff.
Yeah,
Oh, that sucks.
yeah, and he ended up dying homeless and stuff like that. So
Well,
it's
do you mean he wasn't paid royalties, or he was never paid?
that's a good question that I have to look into, but
Okay, because I would imagine he was paid for, actually standing in a room and modeling and stuff, right? Like generally during that time, especially, they would pay you like the same day sometimes, right?
yeah.
Um, but I wonder if it's a matter of like, was he paid some type of royalty for his likeness, things like that, and if he did like special appearances, for Disney, like was he paid, or was it like,
Hmm.
sometimes unfortunately, yeah, people's money get played with, right?
That's
So
true.
that's what I wonder what the details are, because that's terrible.
Yeah, I think
Excuse me.
I think uh because that was the inspiration for. Did you ever see that Alvin and the Chipmunks movie? The not Alvin and the Chipmunks, the
Okay, I was gonna say,
Chip and Dale. There we
okay,
go, the Chip and Dale movie.
yeah, of
Okay.
course,
Well, the new one.
the new one.
Oh, you didn't? You never? Oh my god! So
Well,
they did a reboot of Chip and Dale Rescue Rangers. It was horrible. They
they
tried
did?
to make, huh?
When? When?
You didn't know? Okay.
No,
So
in recent years.
yeah. Oh my goodness, that's
Rescue
hilarious.
Rangers. Wow, I have. Was it like 3D or something?
It was they were trying to they were trying to make it uh like Who Framed Roger Rabbit, or it was like live action meets animation, and there were different animation styles. I thought it was terrible. Not just the story, but also like a lot of the animation. Like it doesn't look as endearing as what's it called? The like Who Framed Roger Rabbit. Yeah, you never saw this? Oh my goodness.
No,
Yeah. So
it looks god awful.
yeah, like it's like self aware. So like they know they're
So
cartoon
a brick
characters.
wall. So they're
So
yeah,
like
trying to do a Who Framed Roger Rabbit type.
yeah, and like one of the chipmunks gets a plastic surgery, so becomes a 3D, so becomes a CGI character as a result.
That's just
It's really stupid.
yeah.
But the villain of that movie is a older Peter Pan, and his backstory is that um, after the movie, he got too old, and so Disney dumped him. And like it's essentially the backstory. It's Bobby Driscoll's story, but
Yeah,
they villainize him in the movie, right? And it's really messed up because in real life, Bobby Driscoll
see,
is the victim.
yeah. This is the problem when Disney tries to be self-aware, and they try to, you know.
It's so funny you
Be,
didn't know about that movie.
no, I'm looking at it. I'm like, yeah, I remember this, and it came and went.
Yeah,
That's why I don't
yeah,
remember
yeah,
because it was terrible.
yeah. I thought it was awful.
Yeah, I see Peter Pan now. I'm watching the trailer here. This is god awful. Oh my god, this is terrible.
But yeah,
See, you can't. Well, I shouldn't say you can't. You can poke fun at yourself as a company, as a property, right? But
right. But they're not poking fun at Disney. They're poking fun at a childhood actor that got
well,
exploited.
well, I don't know if he's. I wouldn't say he's exploited because I don't know the detail. So I'd rather find out if he really.
I mean, that's fair. I'm just saying, but that's the general story
Looks terrible.
that we know so far, right? Of what we know of Bobby Driscoll, right? I'm still looking into stuff myself, but yeah, it's like it's really insensitive that they did that.
Well, listen, Disney animators aren't exactly known for being sensitive. So,
well, I mean,
because it's funny that this is in a Chip and Dale movie. When I don't know if you've seen the clip of the older, more original, where there's a frame that has a inappropriate.
Oh, I mean, yeah, they do that stuff all the time. The
Yeah,
Little Mermaid cover, I get that.
That's what I'm saying. Like animators, listen, I love animators because animators are incredibly talented people. Not just because they can draw or they can animate, but because it takes a certain kind of brain to be able to do like animation.
Yeah.
And the imaginations are insanely amazing. Like seriously, I'm not.
Yeah.
And so when I find out like little things like this, it's like, yeah, that's. Listen,
That doesn't
animators have no
surprise you.
chill, bro. Like they
I mean,
really
that's true. I'm not denying that. I'm just saying, like,
so yeah.
but that's less of an animator thing and more like the writer's idea of
It
like.
is. It's writers, but I don't know. Yeah, a lot of that, that's probably animators too. Because he looks absurd, right? Like I think that's the
Oh
point.
yeah.
It's like absurd to be obsessed with being Peter Pan when you're an adult.
But yeah, it was nuts. But yeah, but I guess the point I was trying to make is that regardless of how you may feel about, I guess, Disney the person, because there's a lot to say about Walt Disney the person, Walt Disney the studio. Like I said, definitely had a better sense of how to actually please its audience.
Yeah, they're in the earlier years for sure.
Yeah, and another YouTuber or another person you should check out on the history of Disneyland. Uh, both the theme parks, mainly the theme parks, is a Defunct Land.
Yeah.
They do the history of theme parks, and they have a whole documentary series on Disneyland, the theme park, and Walt Disney's involvement in it. And it's really great. And there's a lot of interesting things you'll learn about Walt Disney, both good and bad and funny.
Yeah, that sounds cool.
Yeah.
Did we talk about Superman and Shazam yet? Because we talked about Superman, but we were talking about Christopher Reeve.
I know, but I mean, that was, we're getting to that. But I mean, now that you brought it up,
Yeah, because it's fascinating. Basically, what I'm referring to is he sent me a video about the the lawsuit between DC and um, Fawcett Comics,
yeah,
and sort of it gives a brief sort of breakdown, and summarizes quite well actually. It's from was a Strange Brain Parts. That's the name of the channel.
yeah,
Hat tip to him. Check him out. He's got a lot of other great videos as well, but this one he's very concise. And one thing that's fascinating is you look at this lawsuit. DC sues Fawcett because of Captain Marvel, right? Superman comes out not long after Shazam. Captain Marvel comes out, and when Captain Marvel comes out, now Superman was popular, right? He was doing well, but when Captain Marvel hit the scene, man, it was gangbusters, right? Like they were selling like 500,000 copies per issue.
yeah.
Wildly popular. Kids loved it. Comic readers loved it, and so obviously DC saw that as a problem, and so they decided to take him to court, sue for copyright infringement, and they had already done it with another character called Wonder Man, right? Who
Yeah.
they claimed was a ripoff of Superman, and they won that, and so they were emboldened to go after Captain Marvel, and they did, and they didn't necessarily win, right? Um, I think they lost like their first attempts, like it didn't really proceed
Hmm.
because Fawcett put up a good case, and then they appealed, and then DC gained an advantage because they won their appeal. So then they had to prove that there was actual infringement, meaning they had to go through all the comics from Fawcett that features Captain Marvel and actually show where Captain
There
Marvel
he is, Wonder Man.
ripping off Superman, like doing the exact same thing, same pose, same art,
Yeah.
whatever. And they were in the process of doing that, and they hadn't done it. They hadn't proven anything. Okay, but eventually Fawcett settled. Right, they settled with DC for about 400,000, which today in today's dollars is probably double that or triple that, right? And and at the time, the comic industry shifted toward more towards like sci-fi and fantasy and
Yeah.
horror. So superheroes were kind of on the downtrend anyway, which is probably why they settled anyway, because they probably realized, hey, we're not making any money anymore anyway, right? So let's go ahead and do it. And then obviously later on, DC eventually acquires their properties, which included Captain Marvel, right? And then they integrate Captain Marvel into the DC universe.
Yeah.
But what's interesting to me about this whole thing, we all kind of knew about it, but I'm like, man, without this lawsuit, right, without the greed of DC, right, because it is greed, it was kind of stupid to do that, but we wouldn't have Miracle Man, and
Oh
because
yeah.
they were doing Captain Marvel and the Marvel family and everything overseas, in Great Britain, etc. And when the whole lawsuit hit and everything, and especially when Fawcett kind of went defunct, it was like, well, okay, we don't have the rights anymore. So what can we do? We have this readership, and so they restructured Captain Marvel, and they came up with Marvel Man, right?
Yeah.
They did a few runs of Marvel Man, right? And it was still popular, accepted. And they had the whole, basically rebranded, repackaged Shazam, right? Then, of course, there's Marvel Comics and the issues with that,
Right.
legal issues, and I believe the comic book publisher at the time also had financial issues and got shut down and was acquired by another comic book publisher. This is all across the pond, right?
Yeah.
And they rebranded Marvel Man to avoid legal issues, of course, to Miracle Man. And so they did successful runs of Miracle Man for quite some time. It was printed not only in Europe, but it was printed in South America and other countries. So it was very popular, did well. And then eventually it kind of fizzled out. And then later years, I believe it was Grant Morrison, who was a fan of Miracle Man and the Marvel Man stuff,
Yeah.
and they did a reimagining, and they did it sort of a darker tone, um, and we get this series of Miracle Man that's way more grounded and gritty. Um, like if you think Watchmen was, intense, um, Miracle Man is pretty intense,
Yeah, that's true.
and so yeah, and listen, I'm a fan of Miracle Man. I discovered Miracle Man years ago, um, and they published this 3 volume series, and just for the backdrop, it's been in legal limbo for some time. I'm not sure. I think there may have been a decision made because I believe it involved Todd McFarlane wanting to secure the rights to Miracle Man and maybe even bring him into the Spawn universe. Um, and I think Marvel Comics or something like that. So, um, yeah, it's kind of interesting. And the volumes that I have, um, the author simply says the original writer. And it says with Mick Anglo, who is the one who developed Miracle Man, you know,
Right.
ultimately. So it's kind of interesting.
Well, the reason I brought up the Captain Marvel Superman legal issue is mainly because of the idea of being derivative.
Yeah,
It's sort of seen as like a bad thing or
right.
just an issue. Yeah, it has a negative connotation to it, but in reality, is that everything is derivative of something,
Yes,
and
exactly right.
people will say something's derivative in order to like discourage you from like being creative, but it's like like I said, everything came from something. There's nothing
Right,
new under the sun, and it's like,
exactly.
it shouldn't stop you from trying to be creative, and like this issue isn't unique to just Superman and Captain Marvel, right? Obviously,
No,
you have this issue, but like people think that, oh, Captain Marvel is a ripoff of Superman. Not no, it's not, because you have the fact that he's a boy that turns into, you know an actual grown man. That dynamic is way different than Superman's.
yes,
The
that one.
fact that Captain Marvel actually is the first hero to fly.
That's right.
Superman didn't fly until
To the cartoons,
yeah,
like
the Max
special
Flesher.
cartoons.
Yeah,
Yeah,
you have the fact. This I could go on, right? And then you have the same thing happened with what's it called? Mario, not Mario, but Donkey Kong.
Donkey
If anyone's played Donkey Kong, the original Donkey Kong. Well, first off, the original Donkey Kong was inspired by Popeye. It was supposed to be a Popeye game, but then Miyamoto came up with the characters to sort of fill in the gaps, like original characters. So Popeye became, he was called Jumpman or
Jumpman.
Mario. Bluto became Donkey Kong, and Olive Oil became Pauline, right?
That's right.
But then you still had the issue of, oh well, Universal, right?
King Kong.
Uh, yeah, King Kong is, oh, you can't use King Kong or Kong because it's like it's our monkey, and it's like
That's
you
our
don't. But it's like it's silly because it's like you don't have like you don't have the right to, like, it's Kong isn't a copyrighted word, right?
right or trademarked. Yeah,
Yeah, try my word. Excuse me. Um, and it's only done in an effort when something gets really popular. Because here's the thing: things like Captain Marvel and Donkey Kong, and a few others we'll talk about. They only got sued because they got popular, and that
Right.
messed
Well,
with their money.
because yeah, it created competition. Exactly. It's a way of protecting a market. Um, and even though one does not diminish the other, meaning, like for example, right? We can go and say Mercedes or BMW, right? Is
Yeah,
Mercedes going to sue BMW because they both claim to be luxury vehicles? They
no,
both have a class of vehicle, right? Mercedes have like the C class, BMW has their series, right? But you understand what I mean? Like
yeah,
it starts to get silly, right? It's like, well, we have four doors and you have four doors. Oh, we're going to sue you. You
yeah,
have leather seats. We have leather seats. You can't do that, right? You have a Bluetooth stereo. It's like it starts to get silly, right? Because it's like, yeah, but who's gonna lose, right? The consumer loses because we
right,
lose options, we lose choices. And the thing is, many people do both, right? They'll buy either a vehicle or buy both vehicles, right? Just because someone buys one doesn't negate someone else buying the other, right?
right.
And it's the same when it comes to IPs, right? Just because I watch Harry Potter, or like we were saying, Superman, doesn't mean I'm not going to enjoy the Shazam movie. I'm going to go see both, right? Just because there's a Superman comic and a Shazam comic doesn't mean I'm going to ignore one for the other, right? I'm going to read both of them if they're appealing.
Yeah,
I mean, and
exactly.
that's all I'm saying. And that logic gets lost because of the perceived threat of, oh, we're losing money because people are doing an either or. But that's never how any market has ever worked, ever.
Yeah,
Where people would just buy one or the other, unless it's a limited market, right? Like the only thing that will cause that is expense. Like with vehicles, yeah, you're generally people are buying one vehicle at a time, right? So,
right.
but just because I bought a Beamer this time doesn't mean I won't buy a Mercedes next time. You understand? Like,
Yeah,
I might switch it up, right? Um, so yeah, um, that's the problem, especially in this kind of space. Now look, and it's not advocating for actually ripping off, like literally copying someone's work and just slapping your name on it. That's obviously theft.
well,
Um,
obviously, but here's the
Being
thing: it's
derivative
like people
is not
could claim that, and it's like you have to really try to like rip somebody off, right?
Yeah, but
And
that's what I'm
it's like,
saying. Like being derivative is not a theft, and it's not a threat to the original. If anything, it's an homage, right? It's to say, hey, that's cool. Maybe I'll make something similar to that, or that inspired me to make something that's similar, um, and that's what happened with Captain Marvel,
yeah,
right? It's like that's literally it. Um, so it's unfortunate. I mean, because I think we missed out on a lot of opportunities with Captain Marvel. I mean, we did get some series during my generation. In the
yeah.
'70s, '80s, we had some animated series. We had a live action Captain Marvel, and I loved all of it. It was great. But he didn't get the love that he probably should have gotten. You know,
No,
uh,
no, because he's one of my favorite heroes. But
yeah,
to fast forward a bit, because one of my favorite cases of this is actually, for anybody who's played Street Fighter, Street Fighter Two in the '90s sort of created the modern fighting game,
yeah,
and to the point where there's obviously going to be other games like it. And one of the most infamous cases was a game called Fighter's History. Now, obviously, Capcom didn't take it was the Superman Captain Marvel thing all over again.
hmm
Capcom decided to sue Data East, that was the company who made the game, regarding copyright infringement of their game. This was in 1994. This was Capcom USA versus Data East Corporation.
yeah,
And it got to the point where Data East had to make an entire video stating their case against the copyright video. So we're gonna watch this for a minute because it's pretty funny. Because it's like you said, they really had to like nitpick to
Right.
really.
Hello, I'm Isco Adelman, Manager of Corporate Liaison at Data East USA Inc. in San Jose, California.
You heard that?
This
Yeah, I
presentation
hear it.
provides a visual comparison of the characters and fighting moves from the two one-on-one fight games at issue in this dispute, Street Fighter II and Fighter's History. Street Fighter II is produced by Capcom Company Limited in Japan. Simply,
So
Capcom
yeah,
claims that
this
Data
is
East
the
copied the fighter characters.
this is the fighter's history, and then here's the Street Fighter 2 cabinet, right?
Right.
So and so it's based off, oh, you infringed on our characters, so we got to sue you. So here's what they
We'll
try to
review
pull.
Capcom's claim that Data East character Matlock Jade is a copy of Capcom's character Guile. A visual comparison of these characters show that they are not similar. This is Guile, as he appears in the Street Fighter II strategy
We all
guide.
know Guile,
The
Yeah.
images from the strategy guide are
Sonic
the
Boom.
only images Capcom submitted with its papers. If you think that Guile looks familiar, you could be right.
Yeah, fair enough. Yeah.
But here's the thing, and they bring up a good point. It's like they're suing Data East for being derivative of their game when all their characters are derivative of a whole
Popular,
bunch of exactly.
but that's
right?
what
This
I'm
is the
saying. But
image
and
of
that's
Guile from
probably
Street
part
Fighter
of
II
it too.
Champion
Is
Edition.
that part of that being derivative, right? Is, well, if you're inspired by XYZ, guess what? This other company or artist is also inspired by XYZ. So
Yeah,
naturally,
exactly.
being
Yeah,
inspired by the same things, you're going to get similar aspects of those characters, right?
yeah, and they bring that up
In
actually
his ready
like
stance.
right now. So that's
I
the
will
Guile
refer to the
sprite.
screen images from the two games as bitmap images.
Oh my god, I haven't heard that phrase in forever.
Bit-
Bitmap images. Just say sprites, please.
Air Force insignia on the
And
fronts.
so this is the
This is a
character.
pencil sketch of Matlock used
This is
by
the
the
character that they claim is a ripoff of Guile.
graphic artist as a
Well, he's a
model for the
muscular white
bitmap
male.
images in the game.
Yeah,
And
exactly. Yeah,
here's the bitmap image of Matlock from Fighter's History in his ready stance. Matlock is an athletic punk rocker from England. He sports a blonde mohawk haircut, sunglasses and headphones, a leather-studded harness, baggy pants, and boots. Matlock's hair design was based on this photograph of a spiked mohawk haircut.
and they were smart because they bring up all the references that they use for their game, right?
Yeah.
To say, hey,
Makes sense. Yeah.
right? This one's my favorite because it's like it
That's
seems
One
like it's
Punch Man.
close.
That was One
It's One
Punch Man.
Punch.
That's like
Capcom's
Tama.
character Sagat.
Yeah, no, it
See,
definitely
Capcom
felt like.
Starts
asserts
with an
that
S,
Sante is a
Sagat.
copy of Sagat.
Oh my gosh!
Both characters are Thai kickboxers, but otherwise they are very different.
So these are two Muay Thai
This
fighters
is
that they're going to
Sagat from
compare.
Capcom's Street Fighter II strategy
That's
guide.
One Punch Man, bro.
Okay, whatever. But so fun facts: Sagat's actually based off of a real Muay Thai fighter named Sagat.
Okay.
He
I
has a
mean,
distinctive patch over
not
one
really a
eye
shocker, right?
and a prominent scar.
Well, no,
on
I'm
his
just saying, like,
Yeah, that's
so there's a
that's-
real guy named
This is the
Sagat.
Fighter II
Yeah.
character.
So that's his sprite in the game, and then that here is I'm gonna show. Here's there. It's kind of blurry because it's from the '90s. But
yeah. There you go. That's the highest it's gonna go.
He is a
it's like
muscular
it's gonna go.
but trim Thai kickboxer.
But yeah,
His fighting movements and costume are based on the art of Muay Thai. Sanche's appearance, costume, and movements were made as authentic as possible given the limitations of computer graphics, including his wrap wrists, bicep armbands, and traditional headband.
yeah. So this character is actually more accurate to the Thailand culture
Right.
than Street Fighter's character, right? So that's kind of the ironic part is that they were obviously trying to pay tribute to Thailand boxing, Muay Thai, and then Sagat is sort of an exaggeration of it, right?
Right.
So they kind of lose that case, and that you'll see that happen throughout the entire thing. But what's funny is that even today, what's it called? This game, Fighter's History, is seen as a Street Fighter ripoff, which I did too. And it's like if you play, I played both games. Like it's 4-button Street Fighter, especially the SNK version. But it's like people ignore the fact, like much like Captain Marvel, it brought its own original staples as well. It created its own fighting game archetype.
This is my thing, and this is the part I don't understand. Is so what? Especially as a consumer, why do you care if it's a derivative of something else?
No, I know as a
you know what I mean?
customer, you're not going to care,
right? You shouldn't care, and if you use that to dismiss something, say, "Oh, that's a ripoff of blah blah blah."
I'm approaching this from.
Why do you care? Is it good? Do you?
No, I agree. Yeah.
Is it entertaining you? Is it? You understand? Like it's just.
No, I get that. Yeah.
And I'm only commenting because I hear people say things like that, and I see comments online about that. It's kind of like, bro, so what? Like unless you're talking about straight up theft, right?
Right.
Like you took my thing and made money from it. Like you literally took my song, right? Or you took my, my game. Like you took the actual code and the programming and the art. That's different, right? We're not talking about art theft, right? We're talking about someone who, someone or a company or whatever that was clearly inspired by either the first thing that came out, right? Yeah. Or the same fundamental references of the first thing, right? In other words, was Captain Marvel inspired by Superman, or was he inspired by the same things that the original creators of Superman were inspired by?
Right. Yeah.
Probably the latter, right? They were probably just inspired by the same things, the same dynamic, which led to a similar, at least in initial impression, right? And that's all I'm saying. It's like
the only I'm bringing this
so silly.
No, I get that. I'm bringing this up from a creative standpoint, from like
well, I'm just supporting your point. It's like be derivative, but don't steal. Be derivative in the sense of pay homage to, or be inspired by the same things, right? And create your thing with your own spin on it, right?
Yeah, because it's still like this kind of stuff is still happening now. With because do you know about the game Pal World?
Yes.
Yeah. So right now, Pokemon,
that's
the
right?
Nintendo's. Yeah. What's funny is that they're not suing on the designs. There's of the actual
just the concept.
Yeah, but
they're dumb.
Yeah, because they're trying to sue them because they have their mechanics are too similar, which is dumb. You can't.
Right, but if they built those mechanics from scratch, so what?
Yeah.
It's like I said, it goes back to the vehicles, right? Like, you have 4 wheels. Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Your bicycle has 2 wheels like my bicycle.
Like, yeah, it's a bicycle.
It's a bicycle. That's the point, right? Like at some point it's like that's not theft just because it's similar, right? And the reality is, we all see through it, right? It's like, it's a threat to our market share. That's what they're looking at. It's a threat. And so suing them helps to drive them out of business. And that's really why DC did what they did, and that's why Nintendo's doing what they did in Street Fighter, etc.
Yeah, it's just to scare people and to set a precedent.
Yeah, to bully their competition and hopefully force them out of business or force them to sell. Right? And that's really it, because when you think about it logically, it's the most ridiculous thing imaginable, right? It's like, so what? They made a game that's similar to Pokemon, but it's better. Why? Well, maybe the character designs are better, the game mechanics are better, the premise is different, and it's more appealing to gamers. Whatever, right?
Yeah, because here's the thing: there have been other Pokemon ripoffs in the past, right? And I'm not talking about Digimon. I'm talking about
but that is one. Digimon, yeah.
Well, that was more of a Tamagotchi ripoff, but yeah. But I get what you're saying. But
isn't it?
No, Tamagotchi is a little different. But my point is that the only reason that Nintendo cares about Power World is that it made a lot of money. If it didn't
Right.
make a lot of money, they
Makes a lot.
wouldn't care.
Yep. That's it. And that's why it's like, just get out there and make your stuff. And, because eventually I see it happening with a lot of indie creators, like comic creators, like the Rippaverse, for example, iconic comics, some of these other, common writers, these other guys, because they're becoming more and more successful. And eventually the big two and even some of the other smaller companies, they're going to try and stifle their success. Just like, it actually happened to the Rippaverse early on, mainly because of trolls, right? It was some kind of, I think it was a church or some type of mission, right?
Oh yeah, it was some church organization, and I guess they have to use the
International
same name.
something of something, right? Like,
Yeah,
it was their acronym was ISOM.
yeah,
And so, um, they brought up a lawsuit because someone sent them emails and implied that ISOM was basically taking their acronym and basing this hero off of their whatever. I think there's some kind of mission, ministry,
yeah. They're a ministry program. Yeah.
like charitable, whatever. And it's the most ridiculous, asinine thing, but that's what happened, right?
Mm,
Even though ISOM was actually based off a historical person named ISOM,
yeah.
literally, and B is actually a descendant of Eric July, who's the creator of ISOM. So it's actually not only a real person in history, but it's also
He's related to
actual,
him. Yeah.
it's his descendant.
Yeah.
So clearly, it's not an infringement because the reference and the inspiration precedes the ministry itself, right? And not to mention, ISOM is not an acronym; it's a name. So on those three grounds, there's no actual lawsuit. There's no, you know, it's absurd, right?
Yeah.
And the fact that they even brought it to litigation is shameful, in my opinion. It actually makes the ministry look bad, in my opinion, because it looks like they went for a cash grab. So,
Yeah.
but that's my opinion. But thankfully, he worked it out. They had conversations, and there's no settlement or anything. There's just they had a conversation. They came to an agreement and realized, oh, there is no similarities. It's not based off, right? And to be honest,
It
they
never
know.
should have got to that point.
Yeah, never should got. They should have just exercised common sense and did some just a little bit of research, right? It really literally just took perusing the Rippaverse site, right, or watching a YouTube channel to see, oh, it has nothing to do with us, right? But either way, it's like this stuff happens and it's shameful. It really gets annoying and tired because people weaponize the legal system, to try and stifle creativity, to try and shut down, what they perceive as competition. And it's like, why don't you actually just try to make something better? Right? Like with Pokemon, if Power World is as outselling you, guess what, Nintendo? Step it up.
Yeah. I mean, that's literally
Make
Power
a
World
better,
was created
better game.
because a lot of Pokemon fans, and I've spoken to a lot of them,
Hmm.
they are unsatisfied with the recent generation of Pokemon games. They don't live up to the standard that they
Right.
used to, and that's
So,
the only reason Power
so,
was able to
so guess what
make
their
money.
response should be? Instead of wasting money on litigation, how
Make
about
a
you
better game.
spend those dollars and pay talent? I mean, honestly, if I were Nintendo, I would approach Power World and go, look, how much? What did you do? I want the secrets. That's what I would do. I would go, what's the secret? I want to know. How much will it take? Let's join forces.
Yeah.
Right? Like, I
Yeah.
have deep pockets. I can make this happen. Let's do a Power World Pokemon, you know, something. I don't know, team up Power World versus Pokemon or Power I don't know. I mean, you understand what I'm saying? Like, let's just come together, because it's like, why am I gonna take you and try to unless there was an actual infringement, like you stole our code, right? You reversed engineered our game, something. I don't know. You understand what I mean? Like, it has to be something tangible. But if you're just talking about, oh, you have a better idea, no, we can't have that. That's absurd.
Yeah, that's literally what happened. Yeah.
Yeah, that's absurd. That's crazy. You gotta sue someone because they have a better idea. That's just dumb, man. Something's wrong with you. So, but these companies, man, they get to a point where I don't know. They want to control their market, and that's all it is. It's the attempt to control their market, right? They see it as protecting their brand, you know, and part of it is their shareholders and things like that. You know, uh, it becomes problematic, right? So you have to do something to show strength, right? And you have to do something to try and shut it down. And even if you're just trying to create the perception, right? Like trust me,
Yeah.
behind the scenes, DC knew, and even today, um, um, Nintendo knows they don't have a case, right?
All right.
And the worst case scenario is they ruin the reputation of their competition, right? And the best case is they actually win. They actually find some granular piece of evidence that proves theft, right? But which they probably won't. but
No.
like I said, worst case, well, your reputation is garbage because we just accused you of stealing and theft and being hacks, so no one's gonna like you, right? Hopefully gamers are pretty smart, so hopefully they'll see right through that,
I mean, yeah.
and that won't hinder their patronage. So, but unfortunately, with other things, that tends to be the case, right? So, uh, it's unfortunate, but yeah, it sucks. I don't like it, but like I said, if we didn't have the DC lawsuit against Fawcett, um, we wouldn't have had Miracle Man. So, and Miracle Man is pretty dope. It's a
I mean, yeah,
great
but that
series. So it's I don't know. History is a strange thing, you know.
but that's the thing though. That speaks to the importance of being inspired, and
Yeah, yeah,
and
that's true. That's true because
yeah,
that's what they did, right? They said, well, we got to adapt, and they did, and that led to this, you know. So that's kind of the positive, right? The bright side is that we got a new character, new stories, right?
yeah,
So, but similar premise, right? He says a magic word, and he transforms into this hero. So, but it's not really magic based. That's what's kind of fascinating about the story. It's more science based. It's a bit of mystical.
I mean, I'd say
Finding.
that's still pretty magical.
Well, yeah,
But
but I'm just saying, like
I know what you're saying.
frame it
Yeah,
as
yeah.
some type of alien technology, alien
Hmm.
science or something, right? So bioengineering, all that kind of. So that actually makes it kind of fun and intriguing too. So, like I said,
Hmm.
it's a 3 volume series. The book one is called A Dream of Flying. I recommend it. Um, it's really awesome. So, you know, yeah, it's kind of crazy, man. Like something I never thought about before I started writing and getting into this and developing the super galactic. Um, you know, but I remember when I first made my Facebook page for Fantastic Dimension, right? And I started posting like some Alphatron, like concept stuff, and rough draft and all that. And somebody messaged me and said, "Hey, your character is similar to mine," something like that. I think you stole my character. And I said, "Nope, I did not. I can guarantee you that."
Yeah.
And he never replied back, so I just deleted the message. And I just thought, yeah, it's probably spam or something. But it's kind of funny because I'm like, yeah, I'm definitely inspired by Superman. That's clear, and I'm honestly Captain Marvel as well. But then there's other things, you know, about Alphatron that that aren't either character. So,
Yeah.
and the number one thing is, what hero do you know has powers, you know, derived from God Himself, right? Um, outside of the biblical heroes, right, like Samson. I mean, you can point to Greek mythology, right? But you understand? So, there's a whole mythos surrounding Alphatron and the source of his power and how he's able to wield it. You know, and we're going to flesh that out in his story when we relaunch our campaign later this year. Um, so yeah, um, but definitely inspired by all these things. Like we got 60 years of comics.
I mean, yeah. I mean,
Inspired.
I only bring this stuff up just to say, like, don't be afraid to wear your inspirations on your sleeve,
That's right. Yeah,
and don't be afraid of, you know, someone saying, "Hey, this thing reminds me of this other thing." You
yeah.
know,
I mean,
that's not
listen, when
inherently a
someone
bad thing.
says, like, I got a lot of, especially the earlier designs for Alphatron, I got a lot of people who are like, "Oh, it reminds me of Iron Man," you know. And I thought, okay, that's cool. And I realized it was because at that time, the Marvel universe was at its peak in the MCU, right? And Iron Man was top of the heap. So clearly, you see red and gold, and you're gonna think Iron Man, right?
Right.
But then others are like Savage Dragon. I'm like, okay, that's cool.
Oh, that's different.
Then yeah, I know, right? It's like but yeah, I've had like, oh, he reminds me of Savage Dragon, and then of course Superman, right? So I'm like, okay, I'll take it. I mean, because yeah, like of course it's inspired by those things. Of course you're going to see those things because we have 60 some odd years of
Comic book history. Yeah.
comic books, heroes, TV shows, movies. Like you said, everything's derivative.
Yeah.
There's very few things that you can point to and say I've never seen that before.
Half of the Street Fighter cast is based off of Fist of the North Star.
Right. I mean, exactly. So it's, I mean, and even that, Street Fighter and Mortal Kombat and all these others, just go back to the 60s and 70s.
Oh yeah, kung fu movies. Yeah, one armed boxer.
Bruce Lee movies, Flying Guillotine. I mean, you go on and
Yeah.
on, right? It's like, it's all, everything inspires everything else. And that's a beautiful thing. That's awesome. I love that. So we
Yeah.
should revel in that and celebrate it, you know, not, tear it down. So, so yeah, that's all I got for today. And you got anything else?
No, that's it. Don't be afraid to wear your inspiration on your sleeves. Let us know what your favorite IP is that most people would consider a ripoff, but you see the value in it.
Yeah, that'd be interesting to find out. Yeah, we'd love to find out. And please feel free to comment even after we're off because we'll read your comments and we'll respond. So yeah, feel free to start a conversation in the comments. And thanks for watching. Thanks for checking us out. And if you're listening to the recording, thanks for listening. We appreciate it. And thank you for your support. Go to our website and sign up to our email list and get a free digital comic. Check it out. And when you get it, let us know what you think. Tell us what you think about it. So we'd appreciate that feedback. And that's it for now. And have a great weekend. Have another super galactic Saturday. And we'll see you next time.
It, you did it again. Whatever.
Oh, I said July.
No,
Say it again.
it's too late. Y'all
All right,
get out of here.
get out of here.